It's really crazy to think, but it's been almost 2.5 years since Pokemon Go came out, which to me is absolutely mind-blowing. And that's why today I wanted to take a look back at a video that I made a month after the game was released, talking about a lot of the features that people wanted to see implemented into the game. Now, these were features that came up on Reddit that people had suggested, and while some of them have been implemented, others have not, which begs the question, has Pokemon Go finally lived up to the hype? It seemed like early on in the game's lifespan, it was merely a beta. I mean, we had so many problems in that first month. That was ultimately why so many people left, and then millions of people have returned like I have in 2018 because of all the new content and stabilization things that have came into the game. But taking a look back at these updates that we wanted to see in 2016, let's see if they've actually came into the game. Now, the first one that I talked about in that video was the addition of Espeon and Umbreon and obtaining them through a leash system where you could walk an Eevee, ironically for 10 kilometers, and then either evolve that Eevee in the morning or at night to get the specific Eevee evolution that goes with that. This textbook, precisely exactly to that status, was added into the game, and that is the only way you can consistently obtain Umbreon and Espeon is by walking them 10 kilometers and evolving them during the day or at night, because the name trick only does work one time. And then another thing that was recommended and still continues to be recommended is the idea of placing some sort of flare on the map, something that indicates that you have a point of interest, be it somewhere where there is a cool Pokemon, that maybe doesn't spawn frequently, or somewhere where you need raid help. Now, at this time, obviously, raids were not implemented into the game yet, so it wasn't intended to be a way to get people to come over for raid help, but it was a way to, maybe say, hey, there's a Snorlax spawning here. That's what people wanted the flare for. I don't think it's important for that anymore. I think that it is important, however, to add a beacon or something of that nature onto the gym so that people know that there's a raid going on here that people are actually interested in playing. So many raids do not get played, and I feel like if there was a beacon that, from 5 or 10 kilometers away could say, hey, 2 people want to play this raid, more people might be interested in playing it without having to join the city's Discord or something like that. Another recommendation, particularly because early in the game, and even continuing now, rural players have just struggled to play this game very well, was the recommendation of a Safari Zone, which still makes a ton of sense. Now, it might not be the case in New York, but I'll tell you in Minnesota there are all kinds of parks, large parks, obviously very densely wooded parks that are located well outside of the city, and because of that, do not have heavy spawn rates for Pokemon. People suggested that these parks located outside of the cities become safari zones where, regardless of the cell phone activity, these spawns would be increased, as well as the number of Pokestops, which of course would be a real win-win because it would draw people into these parks and truly get them outside, not just outside in the city, but outside really where the nature is. Another customizational option that people had suggested was the addition of titles. Now, titles are basically a thing that goes in front of your username, and it would probably reference one of the types of Pokemon trainers from the game, be it like the bug catcher or, the black belt or something like that, referencing one of the trainers from the game that could get slapped with a cool icon in front of your username. Now, in the current system and the layout for things like raids, where your whole character is being displayed, I don't think there's enough text space to fit something like this in, and I don't think it would work out in the current state of the game. Now, another one people had suggested that actually did come in was the scaling of candies for catching Pokemon. So if you have a 3-tier evolution, let's say you have a Torchic, that's worth 3 candy. If you have a Combustion, that's worth 5. And if you have a Blaziken, that's worth 10 if you catch it. Now, obviously, I've never caught a Blaziken in the wild, but theoretically, these 3-tier evolutions do now give out 3, 5, and 10 candy depending on what evolution state they're caught at, which originally was not the case, which made catching things like Pidgeots and Pidgeotos not really worthwhile because they were so easy to evolve into, and if you caught one, it was only be worth 3 candy, so it was easier just to catch a Pidgey. So because of this, and the complaints that came along with Pidgey and some of those other early 3-tier evolutions, they actually upped this to a 3, 5, and 10 system, which is obviously very preferable. Now, another addition people had suggested was login bonuses, and we did indirectly get this in the daily catch and the daily Pokestop bonus, with the 7-day streak awarding more than a typical day. Another big request, obviously pre-raid system, was seeing what Pokemon are on a gym without being near the gym. Now you can do this right now as long as you're on the gym, which I think is the only fair way to do it. So if I'm on a gym, I can navigate into my gym badges, I can see who else has been added to the gym, how much CP my Pokemon has in the gym, and as a whole, I have to applaud the way they've handled the gym system. I think it is significantly better than it was originally, where, if you stacked 6 Pokemon onto a gym, you had to beat one, you just took one off each time incrementally, and there was no health bleed like there is right now. Additionally, you had to train Pokemon onto the gym in order to get the XP up high enough to add yourself to the gym, and the gyms had like this 1 through 6 leveling system. It's so much better now, in my opinion. And then the last two here, the 2 XP and the 2 times spawn rate weekend. This actually happened. In fact, it happened, nearly all year. We had these community day events, and now we're having this one in December coming up here probably pretty soon to when you see this video, where they're going to be having, double spawn rates for these Pokemon that aren't as commonly seen. Things like Larvitar, the starters, Beldum, as well as, extra Stardust or extra XP. We've seen different things be ran on these community days that have ultimately drawn people into play. And while it has not been a weekend deal until now, these community days have still provided exactly what people were looking for. And lastly was a big complaint in the early stages of the game, which was to remove the Pokestops and the gyms from cemeteries. As far as I know, this never happened, and it's a bad thing, and at the same time it's a good thing if you're a rural player. Most rural players, their only Pokestops and gyms were in cemeteries for the most part, so I mean, they didn't have much choice. It always seemed a little bit wrong to have them in there, and ultimately, while some Pokestops have been removed, I don't think that they've been removed, widespread from cemeteries. But I know that, some, if they've gotten, complaints, things like that, they've been removed, as well as some new ones being added. So that's always constantly changing and constantly evolving. So this was how Pokemon Go, from those 2016 desired changes, how many of them actually got implemented in 2018. And I'm really happy to know that actually a good amount of these got implemented, and I do continue to think that the game is improving for the better. I'm very excited for Community Day weekend. I think it's going to be an absolute blast. So thank you guys for watching. I'm Bailey, and I will see you in the next video.